Glad to have you. Firstly, what do people mean by privatisation? We're constantly being told that the NHS is being privatised. Is it?
No, it isn't. And the fact that these stories have been around for over 40 years, that in itself shows you that this whole story, this whole idea is a whole load of nonsense, because you simply cannot carry on privatizing the same organization forever. No matter how slowly you do it, at some point, a privatization would have to be completed. It's something that you can draw out a little, that you can do slowly, but it has to come to an end eventually. And if it's supposedly been going on for over 40 years, and it still isn't an inch closer to being privatized, then that shows that the whole theory is nonsense. So there was never anything in that. But nonetheless, every time a new health reform comes along, every time a government makes some minor tweak to the healthcare system, somebody will repeat this prophecy saying, oh, careful, this is a Trojan horse, this will lead to privatization, whatever exactly they mean by that. And this will then be taken up by large sections of the media and the medical establishment, and it will become a full-blown moral panic.
It's interesting listening to the arguments as to why the NHS is being supposedly privatised. On the one hand, you have a group of conspiracy people who say that the NHS is being deliberately run down into the ground by the government, being made terrible, being underfunded, even though the funding's grown by astronomical tens of billions of pounds. They say it's being underfunded and therefore being ground down so it can be sold off. Now, the internal logic of that seems odd to me. If something's worth less, why would it want to be sold off?
Yes, that comes from a famous Noam Chomsky quote. He once said this is the standard technique of privatization, that governments underfund things and run them down in order to turn the public against them and then sell them off. But that's, of course, not how any privatization has ever worked. For the same reason that if you want to sell something that you own, say on eBay, of course, running down is the last thing you would do. You would do the exact opposite so that you can demand a higher price for it. So therefore, this idea is implausible in its own terms. But you can find people making that claim irrespective of what's actually happening on the healthcare funding side. This happens in years when real-term spending increases really are quite constrained. So early Cameron years, it was never cut, but it grew in real terms by less than 1% a year. But then we also had periods during the Blair years when the budget was growing by 6, 7, 8% in real terms every year. But you still had people saying, oh, they are deliberately underfunding it because they want to privatize it. So whatever you actually do on the funding side is irrelevant.
And the other argument